I saw The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, so let's talk about it. Probably don't need to say this, but spoilers ahead, so hit that like button, come back later. So this is a pretty good addition to the Lord of the Rings franchise, though it's not my favorite film of the year. My favorite character in this film has to be Thor. While watching this movie, I couldn't really relate to a whole lot of characters as easily as I did with the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, except for Thor. Thor is probably the character I see myself most of in this movie, just due to the fact that you can see there are so many times in this movie that he's biting his tongue just dealing with the crap Wolf is doing. So yeah, if you want to watch something that's related to the Lord of the Rings because you haven't seen anything related to that franchise in a while, this can be a nice watch, though this isn't my favorite movie ever. This movie does have some good qualities to it though, like don't get me wrong. I really enjoyed the animation a lot in this movie, like I really miss hand-drawn animation, and it was really great to see it again in this film. The music in this is also really great. I always got so nostalgic whenever I heard any music play in this movie. And yeah, even some of the fights in this movie were really awesome, and in my opinion, I think some of the fights in this are a lot more impressive than some of the fights that you would see in the live action movies, because in animation, you can get away with a lot more unique fight scenes. But yeah, when looking at this movie, it definitely had a whole lot of problems. One of the problems in this movie was definitely the main character, in my opinion. She wasn't a bad character per se, but I wasn't the biggest fan of her character at all. Hera was definitely a Mary Sue type character, and I am not the biggest fan of Mary Sue type characters. I just think Mary Sue characters are horribly written, and they have a really hard time relating to me due to how easily they succeed at everything they do for the very first time they do something. I do kind of like that in the beginning of this movie, they do make it clear that Hera is an important figure in history of the Lord of the Rings. And I mainly like that because during all of the trailers for this movie, a lot of fans were complaining over the fact that Hera was the main character, because in the books, apparently Hera is such an unimportant character in the franchise, Tolkien himself never even named Helm's daughter. So everybody just found it a little bit weird that a character that isn't even named in the Lord of the Rings story was the main character of the film. But with the lore of Middle-earth, they're forgetting about Hera's name. I think that's kind of a bit of a clever workaround for the fans who were a little bit confused on why Hera of all characters was the main character of this film, even though she wasn't really that important at all in the books. I also had some mixed feelings over the antagonist of the film, Wolf. On one hand, I really do enjoy a villain that is so overcome by anger they don't even think about their actions, but on the other hand, I really did feel like that Wolf for most of the movie just acted like a spoiled brat. There are just so many times in this movie I could not take this guy seriously. And while I did enjoy most of the animation in this film, I did feel like that some of the lip movements for the animation could have been done a little bit better. There are just some moments where the dialogue feels like it's a little bit late while a character is saying something else. My favorite moment in this film has to be Hammerhead's sacrifice. Even though I felt like this guy had plenty of time to get the door open to get himself back inside the fortress and had even more time to get the door closed just in the nick of time, this scene where he gets written off in the film is really awesome. I really enjoy scenes like this where characters who are about to be unalive don't go down without a fight. I mean, this guy goes out by taking down an army in the freezing cold and doesn't get unalive by the army, but by the cold itself by being frozen alive, and it continues to stand even after being unalived. And as you see the guy continuing to stand even after being frozen alive, you can see a whole ton of bodies around the guy, like he took down a lot of people with him. I give this film a 6.6 out of 10, giving it a D+. Anyway, that's the review. Go down to his comments, tell me what you thought of The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim. Share his video with all your friends. And hit that like and follow button to get out of your thought my latest content. See ya!